Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Let us start with a small prayer. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Shri Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Manu, you have removed the screen share, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to yet another session of Weekend Conversations. This is Nitin Sridhar, Chief Curator of Advaita Academy, and today we have invited another special guest, Sri Abhinand Sharma. Just a few words about him before we start with the conversation. Sri Abhinand is a writer and currently working as sub-editor at India Facts, the organization, the platform which I was working previously. And previous to this, he has worked as an author and engineer across for different MNCs. He has been regarding his spiritual journey. He is a student of Vedanta. He has learned. He's learning Advaita Vedanta for last few years. He's learning under V. Subramanian ji in Bangalore, who is one of the very knowledgeable teachers of Vedanta. Subramanian ji also teaches for Advaita Academy, and he's basically an engineer, and along with engineering, science, law, etc. Abhinanji has deep interest in, of course, Vedanta and Dharma Shastra and all those issues. And apart from all this, he also does Jyotishya. He also does Paurohitya on the side, and he has delivered many pravachanams in across Bangalore. Very warm welcome to you, Abhinanji.
Thank you,
Uh,
Nitin.
yeah, your voice was not coming.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I'm very happy to have you on our show. I have been thinking since I start this weekend conversations, I have been thinking I should invite you for our show. And so my very first question, without further much ado, I will straight away jump into the questions. Viewers, if you have any questions, you can put it in the Q&A box, and I will take them up. My first question is, what made you take up interest in Vedanta? But before that, I want you to share more about your professional life. See, the purpose of this weekend conversation segment is basically I am interviewing people from all walks of life, and kind of the showing that it is possible that irrespective of the kind of job we have, the busy life we have, it is possible to anchor ourselves in Hindu philosophical lifestyle, or a Hindu philosophical darshana and Vedanta darshana specifically, and so kind of inspire them and give them practical perspective to the not just the theoretical aspect of Vedanta. We do lot of lectures, lot of events on that, but also the practical aspect. So my first question then would be, I wanted to, you have a very diverse portfolio of professional life, so to speak. So can you share more about it? What kind of studies you did, what kind of work you have done? Yeah.
Yeah, sure, Nitinji. Firstly, I would like to thank Advaita Academy and also Nitinji for taking up such weekend conversations. It gives each one, it is a good guidance for people who are interested to move towards Vedanta. So with this, I would thank you for this new venture which you are into. Yeah, regarding my professional life, I studied engineering and science together. I studied chemistry as well, and I immediately joined after my graduation. I joined corporate, and I worked as an mechanical engineer, a drafting engineer, and I was into core technical job, which I worked for around 2 years. Somehow in that same job, I moved towards writing, and further on, I was the next role, whichever I took up, was also into writing only. And then after I took a big jump in my career and joined a startup, and then I was working there, where even there I was into writing. Of course, in that startup, I was also trained on public speaking for spokesperson skills as well. So I sort of moved into writing and speaking, debating, and such things. On the hindsight, I also moved. I was studying the shastras and trying to accumulate knowledge in this field as well. Now, of course, as you mentioned, I am working currently with India Facts as a writer and a sub-editor, and this is more into my line, where it's more, of course, about Hindu phobia, but then it's more about Hindu activism, Hindu nationalism, and such things as well, which are some of the topics which are close to my heart. Apart from Advaita Vedanta, the main interest which I have. So now currently I work here as an writer.
Wonderful, wonderful. So this brings us to the second question, or what actually I asked as a first question. How did your introduction to Adhyatma, the spiritual path, especially Vedanta, happened? I mean, most of us, I see that the kind of people I have interviewed, I see that either some turning in their life has brought in this interest, or sometimes it is purely a quest of seeking, and that was how it was in my case. My interest in philosophy started quite accidentally, so to speak, or it was all divine grace. When I was in high school, I was given a novel, an English novel, which is basically called Sophie's World, which has the summary of the whole Western philosophy. So my introduction to Hindu dharma happened through the Western philosophy. So it was more of my own individual interest into the basic questions like, who am I, and whether I alone exist, or whether others even exist or not. I mean, these are the kind of questions that triggered me. But there are, I have interviewed others who have had some experiences and then into the Vedanta, or some life-changing circumstances that did it. So please share with our readers your own journey. How did it start, and what were your major influences, or how did it all happen? Yeah.
Yeah, this is maybe a very lengthy answer, but then to keep it short, I would say that.
No, I request you to keep it lengthy. So not only
Yeah,
you don't make it
sure,
short.
sure. Yeah. So perhaps from my childhood days, I think that was when Vedanta was introduced. My mother used to read out talks of Kanchi Shankaracharya, Srimad Chandrasekharendra Saraswati Mahaswamiji, and also works of Swami Vivekananda. She used to read out their teachings to me. And my father also used, my bedtime stories were Mahabharata and Ramayana and other classics which are part of our Sanatana literature. So this was sort of my building blocks, if I would say. My grandparents, of course, were very orthodox and adept at following rituals and fasts. So that also complemented the other the way I was brought up. So this, of course, got me an interest in pursuing religion, if I had to say. The karmic part of our Sanatana Dharma was something which interested me. I remember vividly that when I was in my ninth, I happened to win a prize in my school for an essay. The essay was on the life of Sri Ramana Maharshi, and I was gifted with a book of teachings of Sri Ramana Bhagavan. And the book itself was titled as Who Am I? Of course, it's the most famous work of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. It was about it's the English translation of the Tamil book Naan Yaar. So I that was a book which changed a lot of things in my life. I happened to that book made me to investigate who am I, and that self inquiry was sort of seeded through that book. Of course, then there was some dormant period, and academics and other things take main stage. And what happened was, even social media had a great role in my life. So I was when I was studying, that's when social media, especially social networking, was something which was an attraction, and if I had to say, even a distraction as well. So social media, I used to log into social networking sites, and then I found that it's not only me who's interested in adhyatma. There are thousands of others. There are people who are much more knowledgeable, more experienced. So otherwise I was confined to, say, a sort of arrogant feeling, or sort of living in a nutshell, that only I'm the person who's seeking the truth. But then of course, social networking helped me realize that I'm not even a dust in the whole universe. So that sort of helped me to get back to Vedanta. And so I also developed interest in quantum chemistry, which of course, though now I do not like to relate science that much to Vedanta. But yeah, that was nevertheless, it helped me in pursuing an interest in Vedanta by itself. Of course, there was a turning point in my life when my elder brother expired a few years, 6 7 years ago, which was sort of, at that moment, is tragic and devastating. But that until then, I was more into the karmic sadhana, the pursuing the karma marga, and I wanted to get the title of being a karmatha. Trying to perform all the 400 yagas mentioned in the Vedas, and becoming the next Appaya Dikshitar or Neelkanta Dikshitar. So that was something which I was trying to hop on and get a title of Somayaji and perform a Somayaga or something like that. But then after this event, I started realizing the fruitlessness of karma, if I have to say. It's more than fruitlessness. The the futileness of karma, if I have to say. The end of one karma always begins with another karma. So this is something which I realized post that event, and slowly I had this withdrawal from the karma, so withdrawal syndrome from karmic way of life, and I started developing an interest in Vedanta. Of course, this much prior to this event, due to social networking itself, I happened to had I got the grace of my guru Vidwan Sri V. Subramaniam Mahodaya, and I was in contact with him. And then after this event, I realized, and attending few of his talks, I realized the futileness of karma, and then decided that there is something beyond this which I have to pursue, and which everyone must pursue. It is when I got interested in Vedanta and formally submitted to him that I am interested to study Vedanta. And that's how I think this just began with Vedanta.
Wonderful. Uh, I don't know whether wonderful is a correct word or not here, because your journey into formally journey into Vedanta started with a personal tragedy, and my condolences on that part. But I think, uh, in a sense, these tragedies kind of serve as a reminder to about the reality, and or the reality that the world is impermanent, and we need to find search for that permanent truth or reality, and that is what Advaita is. And you are currently you have been studying Vedanta under Sri V. Subramanian ji, and he is one of those teachers whom I personally deeply respect, and I have met him. I had gone to his home once, Bangalore. I went from Mysore to Bangalore just to meet him, actually. And so wonderful person, wonderful teacher, and he has been very helpful in all my work, especially. So can you tell us more about your study of Vedanta under V. Subramaniam ji, along with any other shastras that you have formally studied or are currently studying. I believe you have also studied other shastras like Jyotisha, Tarka, etc. So, can you share for the benefit of our viewers?
Okay. So yeah, primarily my Vedanta study is under Vidwan Sri Subramaniam Mahodaya, which of course is happening due to the grace of the Shringeri Peethadipatis, the Ubhay Jagat Gurus, and the Shringeri Guru Parampara itself. Because my Guru is the direct disciple of Vidwan Brahmarshi Dr. Subbaramaya Garu, and who was the direct disciple of Srimad Chandrasekhar Bharati Mahaswamiji and Srimad Abhinav Vidyatirtha Mahaswamiji. So my Vedantic study has come from this. Primarily in this, my Guru has taught me has expounded portions of Sri Dakshinamurti Stotra, which the Dakshinamurti Ashtaka or the Dakshinamurti Stotra, which of course runs into pages, which is authored by his Guru. But nevertheless, whatever portion is yogya for me, that is of which I am capable to digest, was taught to me by Acharya, and I was part of his Taittiriya Upanishad Bhashya, and he conducts Vedanta classes online, Vedanta classes in Vivek Chudamani and Panchadashi. I was fortunate to attend. I still attend those classes, and yeah, we must thank Advaita Academy because they put all these videos for those who cannot attend his classes live. So with apart from this, he is also he was the one who suggested me to pursue the path of Advaita Vedanta as a subject, as a discipline more seriously. So for that, an introductory course in Tarka Shastra, the Nyaya, the system of logic, I've studied Tarka Sangraha and also some parts of Muktavali, the next text for in Nyaya.
Under whom did you study Tarka Sangraha and
Under
Mukta?
Vidwan P. Raghavendra Arohalli Mahodaya, who is in Shringeri, who is Nyaya Shastra and Vedanta Vidwan. I studied these texts from him, and also Ishavasya Upanishad from Vidwan V. Srinivasa Karanta Mahodaya, who stays in Mysore. So I happened to study this from him. As a precursory study for this, Sahitya and Vyakarana and Tarka are requisites for any Shastra if you want to pursue it as an academic discipline. So for that, I happened to study Vyakarana under the guidance of Brahmarshi Mani Dravida Shastri Mahopadhyaya, and Sahitya I studied from Dr. Chandrasekhar Mahodaya in Bangalore. Chandrasekhar Avadhani Mahodaya. So this was for Vedantic studies. Of course, Jyotisha was something which I studied perhaps from my school days, and then I specialized in Bhaishaja Jyotisha, medicinal astrology, and this I studied astrology from Vidwan Srinivasa Murthy Mahodaya and Sri Shyama Bhatta Mahodaya, and this was for Jyotisha, and Dharma Shastra I studied under the guidance of Mahamohopadhyaya Sri Sheshadrinatha Shastrigal, KV Sheshadrinath Shastrigal, who's currently settled in Kaladi, the birthplace of Adi Shankara. And this is sort of the Shastric studies. And besides this, I have completed the study of Rigveda Samhita and the Shadanga, the 6 Angas of Veda, namely Vyakarana, Nirukta, Chandas, etc. So I've studied this under Vidwan Krishnamurti Shastrinaha and Krishna Bhatt Ganapati Mahodaya and Sri Praveen Bhatt Mahodaya and Vidwan Dhali Lakshmi Narasimha Bhatt. So yeah, this is my study for in the Adhyatmic sphere, if I have to say. This yeah, sort of this study in Veda and Dharma Shastra sort of now are now complementing my, are helping, supporting my Vedantic pursuit.
So all this you started studying in the last few years after you decided to take up Vedanta, or this you have been doing this for a
No, this was
last.
prior to Vedanta, if I have to say. When I
Hmm.
decided on Vedanta, I sort of
Hmm.
had to leave other pursuits.
Hmm.
So,
Well, this is very impressive, very wide. You have kind of covered large portions of the 14 Vidyasthanas, and it is a wonderful thing that Uh, so,
that is, perhaps that is maybe as a, you know, there's something called Vidvatta, the scholar, becoming a scholar in this. I'm not a scholar in any of these fields, if I have to say. Perhaps a jack of all and master of none. But
we need generalists like this. Actually, I was attending recently where yes, I think there has been some internet issue on our guest's side. Let us just wait a moment for him to get back. I just had a quick call with Shri Abhinand, and he is trying to connect back. So there was some internet issue. Please bear with us.
hello. Yeah. Are you?
Yeah, we are able to hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I apologize for this. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's okay. Can you just move your video a little bit up your head? Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So we were just discussing, and so see, the Dharma Shastra is another of my favorite area of research.
Yes, yes. That book
So,
is read worthy, which I would
so
definitely
what
recommend.
did so what did you study on Dharma Shastra? Was it a particular text or was it a portions of different texts?
Yeah, so I planned once upon a time. I planned to do a master's in Dharma Shastra, offered by
Mhm.
Samskrita University, of course, in Karnataka, and also now the Tirupati Samskrita University. For that, there are some portions of different Dharma Shastra texts which we must study. I went ahead with that pursuit, but then things changed. I happened to read the whole Manusmriti, the Yajnavalkya Smriti, and Parashara Smriti, and also two more granthas which are not mainly Smriti oriented. They're Smritis, but then they're not only for Dharma Shastra. They're also more into Prayoga, the Vaidyanatha Dikshitiyam and that's called Smriti Muktapala and Dharma Sindhu. These two granthas are, also I happen to study.
Oh,
Yeah,
wonderful,
Dharma
wonderful.
Shastra was for pursuing a degree, but then now I don't have any degree or any academic badge titled as Dharma Shastra. But yeah, it definitely helped. It helped me giving an insight into Vedanta in a different angle.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So moving on to my next question. We discussed about Vedanta as a Shastra and the rigor, from your response, it is very clear that the rigor is needed to study it is very much, and it takes years of proper study under a guru. But of course, studying Adhyayana is one part, and implementing or interiorizing the teaching, the Manana and Nididhyasana part, and making it a reality is another. So, can you share some insights into how you have tried to do this, how you have tried to live Vedanta, so to speak, and any advice to other people who are in this path?
Yeah, so yeah, I also firmly believe in walking the talk more than being an armchair philosopher. I would definitely want to be a practicing Vedantin than an armchair Vedantin who just quotes different Upanishads or different granthas. Yeah, I still believe in being a pursuer than academician in this field. My interest in pursuing this as an academic discipline is something different. I even studying or this academic rigor which Advaita calls for, or any Shastra or any discipline calls for, is something which every Shastra would call for to make you an expert in that field. But Vedanta, the rigor helps you in pursuing the Vedantic path itself. So only in Advaita Vedanta we have that liberty to say that being an academic Advaita Vedanta pursuant is also helpful in bringing it down to daily life. Of course, bringing it or when you say living Vedanta, this is something which I'm interested in. I personally believe that the Guru Vakya is the Parama Pramana. So as Acharya says that Shraddha is something which we have in the words of Guru and the Shastras. So this is something which I believe in my life. I personally try to imbibe to the best possible extent, and imbibing whatever is the teachings or the instructions provided by the Guru, something which we should internalize, and only then we would get the actual meaning of Vedanta. We would realize that there is some synchrony between Vedanta and our real life. Else, it would be Vedanta is some lofty talk. It is not useful for many. So I personally whatever sadhana I do or something is guided by my guru and other the satsanga which I'm involved in. So I try to keep my personal sadhana in tune with their instructions uh, instead of pursuing something independently and
Mhm.
not not making ends meet on this. And my advice, I don't, I mean, I'm too young or too immature to advise anyone maybe, but yeah, as a suggestion would be is to, especially the present day youth, when we love science and we try to question every aspect of our life. We are asked in school to question why for every observation which we make. we should also question as why I was born. So say why I was born the second child as a second child to my parents and not first child. We should question, even we should pose such questions to ourselves as well. Like why was I not born in 1947 when India got independence, or why was I not born when perhaps you could fly from your home to your friend's home or such thing. So such questions we should question ourselves, because the answers for such question only make us to get you can't call it a belief, but then the answers to such question only help us to internalize the fact that the fact of existence of other lokas, other janmas, which otherwise science would totally reject because of its the nature of the perception of objects. Science only perceives objects and tells us the truth. So only by inference we can find out that there are other janmas, other lokas. Then we would come to a conclusion that no, there is something which doesn't have a janma, and it just dawns a sharira. So then we would come to a conclusion that there is something called atma. Then we would know that there is only the Parabrahma Vastu, which is the Advaitic truth, the Vedantic Upanishadic truth. So that is the only suggestion, is to perhaps question yourself more, not only on why plants have photosynthesis and we eat food. It also question and about ourselves, about our life, about Atma, the spirit, such things. Yeah, that would be a suggestion for anyone who would want to enter this.
Wonderful. I think that is a very practical advice, and that is something which shaped my approach to world, so to speak, in earlier years. As I mentioned earlier, that my introduction to philosophy happened through a book, a novel, especially written for teenager, Sophie's World. And in the story is actually wherein a girl called Sophie gets a letter with a question. The first question was, "Who are you?" And another letter, there are similar questions like, "What is the world?" or something. I don't remember now. So this led me to ask these questions: Who am I? Am I the body? Am I the thinking mind? So that is how it started, and I think that is a very practical advice. I want to ask this: while you were narrating about your introduction to Vedanta, you mentioned that you realized the pursuit of karma is futile, and somehow this view is, though I think it is, I will not say it is wrong, but still, if taken to extreme, it means that Vedanta is saying life is, it is a Vedanta is a life denying darshana, and this is a kind of a this is a kind of a view which is prevalent among common people, even among scholars, and there is a negative kind of view that says that Shankara was life denying person. Vedanta denies lives and all. But in the text like Ishavasya Upanishad, for example, we find that after the first verse, which says that Ishavasamidam Sarvam, the Ishvara is here everywhere. It's in the second verse, it says, Kurvanne evahya karmani jijivishet chatam samaha. You have to do the karmas, you have to do the dharmanushtana if you desire to live here for 100 years. So, and yeah, so this is a kind of a very central question to all of us, to all the people in the path, to how to balance between karma and moksha, or more specifically. So I want you to share your view on this, on one, what is the interrelationship or how to balance out karma and pursuit of moksha. And two, I want you to clarify on this allegation that Vedanta is life denying and karma is entirely futile, because we also, I read in, for example, Naishkarmya Siddhi of Sri Sureshwaracharya, he says the purpose of karma is in chitta shuddhi, so it has a positive role as well as Vedanta is concerned. So please share your views and comments on this.
Yeah, very good question. Which, of course, even I have passed through such feelings that am I living in denial, and such thoughts have come. I mean, I think it would come to every aspirant. And I'm not telling that, I'm an achiever or no, I have sort of attained jnana or something. I don't proclaim that, but then this allegation is something which has been, since ages it has been there. It has been put on Vedanta Darshana itself. But I don't think Vedanta is denial of life, or Vedanta doesn't even give such a doubt to life. What it says is that even the futility of karma, it is not that karma itself is of no use. Say only a person who works in a bank for around 30 years and retires from a bank, he would be in a position to say that, okay, I've done enough for my bank. Now I want to concentrate on perhaps my personal life or anything, or pursue a hobby. So only a person who has worked for that 30 years, and only if he tells, there is some value to that statement. Not for a person who has not even entered the workforce or not even joined a bank. If we tell that there's no use of working in a bank or working anywhere for that matter, and it's better to stay anyway. After 60 years, you're going to stay at home, live with family. So that's not the way we should look at it. Of course, outwardly, it might we might think that a person who is serious in Vedanta is denying every good or bad opportunity coming to him, or and he's more so inactive and lazy. This is not the fault of Vedanta, it's the fault of the seeker, is what I feel. It is his lack of Shraddha towards his guru, and it in Shastric words, I believe it is a form of papa, sin which we have committed, which sorts of makes us dull and dormant. Instead of pursuing Vedanta as a sadhana, we look at it as something which as a means to arrive, get some benefits or results. So only then we would sort of because Vedanta is a very challenging path. Even if you are looking towards the fruit, the phala is not instantly available, like eating or perhaps playing cricket. The phala is it could be after any other janma also. So in the the wait for the pratiksha for the phala, we would think that anyway we are not going to get it. So let us live in denial. So this is again a form of ashraddha, the lack of faith in the shastra and the lack of faith in the guru, or doubting the shastric path whether this is right or wrong, is some also a cause of such. And for a person who is accusing Vedanta of this allegation, I think it is more of his own internal karma which makes him tell like that. Of course, there was a point when I studied Shrauta, about Agnihotra and such things. I was, as I told you, I was interested to perform Soma yagas and different yagas mentioned in the Vedas. So I realized only that the pursuit of such yaga, the karma marga, if I had to say, the pursuit of karma only for the sake of I'd say achieving the Swargaloka, the heavens or such thing, that is futile, is what I realized, if I have to say. Nowhere in Shastras also it's mentioned that they are futile. It is required for, there are many who have that itself as their lifetime goal, and you try to bring them to Vedanta, it's very difficult, and it would only lead to an lack of expertise in karma and lack of expertise in Vedanta. So it is better that they are oriented towards karmic path only, but only for a person who would want to realize something beyond that, like how Yajnavalkya's wife realizes that he's when Yajnavalkya is quitting everything from the world, and he's pursuing Vedanta, the Atma Tattva, he realizes that and he gives away all his wealth to both of his wife. One of his wife asks him that you are pursuing something, leaving all your wealth behind, which means you got some better form of wealth. To teach me about that wealth. So that's how the Upanishadic talk goes in Brihadaranyaka. So this such a thing is only in those terms I meant that to be futile. Now Yajnavalkya cannot tell that his wealth which he had earned through dana dharma is something which he cannot outrightly tell that they are all futile. So that's what I meant by karma being futile. And of course, life in denial is not at all the purpose of Vedanta, which I'm sure you'll also agree with. You're a better person to judge on.
Oh, I am not a better person. I'm more of a Vedanta enthusiast, so to speak. So interesting example you gave, about that bank. It perfectly conveys what you wanted to say, and I think this is an idea which people often find difficult to understand, and just because a sannyasin renounces the world, it doesn't mean that those who have desires can say that I will do what I like. I will not practice dharma. Because even sannyasi has, the Krishna says, leave all dharma and surrender to me. So I will neither leave dharma, I will neither practice dharma nor surrender to Krishna, but I will do what I
Uh,
like.
I know that is perhaps choosing the most advantageous route of.
Yes, yes, and this is why I personally love Isha Upanishad, the Ishavasya Upanishad, because it is other Upanishads concentrate on Vedanta, in the sense actual Brahma Jnana and how to attain it, so to speak. Whereas the Isha Upanishad gives it's a darshana, in a sense that it gives the entire chart, entire path, the different modes of existence. One can practice the Nivritti Dharma, one can practice the Pravritti Dharma, and those uh, who can neither renounce the world and who choose to not to perform the duties and actions, they fall into this path of recklessness, which is so. This is an idea which, in an Upanishadic idea, I am sure it is present across different texts, but Isha Upanishad brings it out in a most comprehensive manner, and that is what I have understood. Moving on, my next question, I think we have just around 15 minutes left. Viewers, if you have any questions, now is the time for you to ask. So moving on, my next question is, again, this is a question that I wanted to ask you for some time, and I told you this yesterday also, that you have studied Jyotisha, and Jyotisha again is Shastra which sheds light on karma and karma phala. Basically, Jyotisha is of course also a Vedanga, and even Jyotisha in this sense of karma and karma phala, it can be understood as a aspect of Mimamsa as well, because Mimamsa is basically investigates the dharma aspect, right? So I know it's not directly connected, but still. So I want to ask you whether we can find any overlapping or a connection between Jyotisha and Vedanta. The reason I'm asking is, in my own limited study of various Shastras or various Darshanas, I have found that Vedanta, because the Veda is the ultimate pramana for everything, so we find a Vedantic basis for many things. Vedanta provides the very basic, fundamental building blocks on which all other knowledge are kind of a limbs, anga, right? So can we find something similar with respect to Jyotisha as well?
So yeah, the all pervasiveness of Vedanta, makes it to enter even Jyotisha as well. But Jyotisha, I mean, having said that, Jyotisha is like any other subject. It is, it's one of the Apara Vidyas, which is so. Considering that it is one of the Apara Vidyas, as good as say engineering or science or arts or any secular form of education. If you look at that angle, Jyotisha may not directly link itself to Vedanta. The issue is all this form of Apara Vidyas begin with the begin of desire. So you want to study medicine because you want to cure someone, or you want to find out different vaccine or medicine or something like that. and you want to study law because you want to set right the society, such things. So every form of apara vidya, this education starts with some desire. Vedanta, fortunately, and maybe for some of them, unfortunately, it starts with the end of the desire. So only at the culmination of your desires is where Vedanta begins with. So there is no direct link, but then yeah, having said that, yeah, here is the clause where in Jyotisha you're taught about the prarabdha karmas. Vedanta teaches you to surrender to the prarabdha karmas, and through jnana it tells you to wash away sanchita and agami karmas, the prarabdha karma, the effect of the previous janma karmas which are which are affecting now, which are under effect now. Such an prarabdha karmas phala is what Jyotisha tells, and it tries to give a remedial measure to such prarabdha karmas. Of course, this is the Phalita Jyotisha. The main Jyotisha is from Muhurta, the setting of calculation of time and such things, which are more used for performing big yagas and different angas within the yagas. Say, in a Soma yaga, to churn the Soma rasa itself, there is one Muhurta which it should be done within that time. So for such things, Jyotisha is very useful. And yeah, as you said, for pursuing the path of karma, Jyotisha is a very handy tool. And yeah, for a person who's interested in Vedanta, to make him to surrender to prarabdha is something Jyotisha would also definitely teach us. Of course, it doesn't tell out directly that there's a remedy for every prarabdha karma. It tries to mitigate the
severe effects of
severe effects of the
prarabdha.
prarabdha karma. Yes.
So this is what I find fascinating. See, that two different, one is apara vidya and one is para vidya, but the basis, the basic fundamental blocks are same. The notion of prarabdha, the notion of karma, and the different kinds of karma, the both of them share the same thing. And recently we did as part Advaita Academy did a one day event on Ayushman as part of that Ayushman series, wherein we hosted a talk on Ayurveda and Vedanta, to see how the Vedantic ideas are form the fundamental blocks in Ayurveda as well. So and I find this aspect very fascinating.
Yes, yes.
So I think we have 10 more minutes, so we can take one or two questions. My question is, this is a more of a, I ask this to all those who I interview. If you were to choose one text among the Prakarana Granthas, I mean, it may be any text. It may be written by Adi Shankaracharya, it may be by the Acharyas before his time or Acharyas after his time. If you have to choose one text in Vedanta Parampara as your favorite, or you may choose two texts as well, I don't mind. So what would it be?
Yeah, the first grantha which would come to my mind, it's a very short Laghu Prakarana, if I have to say, is Sri Dakshinamurti Ashtakam by Bhagavad Acharya, and his own work, which is known to everyone, Viveka Chudamani. And these are two granthas which I enjoy reading and listening to discourses. Apart from this, pre-Shankara text which I would generally recommend, if I had to say, and enjoy reading, is Srimad Bhagavatam, which brings out Advaita Vedanta through the angle of bhakti. So that is another grantha which I like.
Wonderful. Any other granthas?
Yeah, it should. There's something which with all these granthas, it comes with the sadhana chatushtaya which we are supposed to have, the prerequisites for a Vedantin. If I am blessed with such this thing, I would really love to read the Prasthanatraya Bhashyas itself. And yeah, this another Prakarana Grantha which is not by Srimad Shankaracharya, but one of his lineage Shishyas, Srimad Vidyaranya Mahaswami. So that is Panchadashi, a great grantha, and of course Advaita Academy is something which is popularizing Panchadashi by my guru. So Advaita
Yes,
Academy is
we have many
something
lectures on it.
I should really thank Advaita Academy for my pursuit of my Vedanta as well in my personal life. So I've used it extensively. Perhaps even I've used it so much that if it were a paper, I would have torn it by now. So I've used it extensively. So I really thank Advaita Academy for bringing such a good such a good venture in itself for bringing out Advaita Vedanta for common.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. My personal favorite books are, of course, one is the Karika by Gaudapada Acharya,
Mandukya.
and the other is I like Naishkarmya Siddhi of Sureshwaracharya and Gudartha Deepika of Sri Madhusudana Saraswati.
That
And of,
Udasati as also.
yes,
I've read portions
yeah,
of it.
yeah,
There
I
is
have,
Atma Vidya Vilasa. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, please continue.
yeah, continue,
Atma
yeah.
Vidya Vilasa by Ramendra Swaminaha and Sadashiv Ramendra Swaminaha, and yeah, that's another grantha which I enjoy.
But even Sri Chandrasekhar Bharati was very fond of this Atma Vidya Vilasa, if I am not wrong, right?
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we have got one viewer's question, and we are almost out of time. So, but I would like you to take this one. Any advice on how Advaita can be followed by a householder?
Oh, okay. Okay. No, I think this question should be. I should ask this question to others. Being a householder myself. Yeah, we should. I mean, there are some basic teachings of Acharya which we can inculcate in our own life. Leaving the sannyasa is not the only route available for Advaita Vedanta. Even in the Grihasthashrama itself, for an householder, performing the duties of an householder without attachment to the results, perhaps even say you're teaching your own child or something, you teach, not with the intent of course, with the intent of him excelling in his studies, but no, you should not have the you should not longer for the fruits of the action. Of course, his his centum in his maths is not your centum in your maths. So more than having attachment to the fruit or taking pride, the moment you are a householder, there are thousand things which cut you off from your adhyatma sadhana. But such distractions should not be. We should not yield to such distractions and perhaps pursue the Atma Tattva silently to the extent possible, and do our Grasthashrama Dharma, whatever is mentioned in the Shastras. That itself would lead you to Chitta Shuddhi, which would finally take you to Vedanta Sadhana. I think that's
Wonderful.
the only way I can answer that question.
Yeah. It's a very practical advice. I think this is. I think if you have to summarize it in a one word, it is constant self-awareness. That is where the mind is going every time you have, and self-centeredness or mindfulness, so to speak. And I think that is the most difficult thing to achieve. Yeah, to because we are always so full of thoughts, and I think Adi Shankaracharya in his Shivananda Lahari compares the mind to a monkey, which is always going here and there, and see, just we are almost towards the conclusion. I find the connection between bhakti and Vedanta very beautiful, and especially in Shivananda Lahari, Shankaracharya has expressed this in a very beautiful way. How the way to tame the monkey mind is through bhakti, by fixing it upon Ishvara, and we find Madhusudana Saraswati even expressing the similar idea as well. So one final comment. I request you, Bhakti and Vedanta, and how Bhakti can be utilized in the path of Vedanta.
Bhakti, as in, Bhakti itself is Vedanta, the Parabrahma itself. The Acharya says in his Viveka Chudamani that moksha sadhana samagriyam bhakti reva gariyasi. Among the different tools available to attain moksha, which are limited in itself, bhakti is the best the tool which you can use. Of course, the staying in yourself, the swaswarupa anusandhana, that what he calls the self, staying in the self, imbibing yourself in the self, surrendering to the self is the highest form of devotion, is what he says. Of course, bhakti starts with the Dvaita Bhakti, that there is one God I have to worship, or say my sorrows and such things. It would finally lead to being getting this feeling that the God whom we worshipped at the previous step is something is universal, omnipresent, and his omniscience is even within me. The Atma, which I all along used to find it different from the Paramatma, is nothing but a form of the Paramatma himself, the God himself. So bhakti is something which is, another word to Vedanta, if I have to say. But of course, bhakti channelized towards Atma sadhana is, the bhakti which I'm meaning here. Bhakti is very
Wonderful.
essential.
I think that is a very great definition by Acharya. I find similar. Acharya has given lot of such definitions in Viveka Chudamani. My favorite one is on Titaksha. Sahanam sarvadukkanam apratikara purvakam chinta vilapa rahitam satitaksha vidiyate. I always try to remember this one. I think this is very practically useful, because we all get angry, we all get frustrated in a day-to-day life, almost on a daily basis.
Hourly basis.
Hourly basis, yes. I mean, even minutely basis,
Yeah.
because now it's all internet world. You open Facebook, you open Twitter, you get into debate with somebody, and then
Yeah, that
get all worked up. So, viewers, with this, we come to conclusion of today's session. I like to thank Shri Abhinan Sharma for coming on this show. On behalf of our entire Advaita Academy and all our viewers, I thank you. And thank you for coming. And it was a wonderful session, fascinating session. And I'm sure all of us have gained a lot of insights from this session. Thank you, Abhinanji.
Thank you very much, Nitinji. Thank you, Advaita Academy, also for providing this opportunity.
Yeah.
And you're doing a really great work. I'm interested. I've listened to other weekend conversation lectures as well. Very inspiring. The story of each aspirant is something which we can all imbibe in our lives to the extent possible. So thank you for providing this opportunity as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for your repeated appreciation of our work and your continued
Definitely.
support.
It
And
is praiseworthy in itself. So it should
yes,
be.
thank you very much. Viewers, check our follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and we will be announcing more and more events. And tomorrow morning, don't forget to log in at 10 a.m. Shri Dr. Niranjan Sahaji will continue his lecture on Shri Madhusudana Saraswati. Tomorrow he will be speaking about the works of Madhusudana Saraswati. Don't forget to log in. If you have not registered, please go and register on our website. See you all tomorrow morning. Shri Guru Pyo Namaha.